But today we're going to look at bees. Yep, bees. Fostering bees. Now, a team at Haulage Plant Iron Recycling contractor Scott Brothers over at Haverton Hill, well, they're helping Wrecker-based pest control company Killline, who rescue bees. Well, they're helping them to rehome them. How? Why? What? Well, anyway, all those questions will be answered. Louise Hobson, our very own Lou, has been over to site to find out a bit more.
Hi, Gary. Well, it's a beautiful day here in Biddlesbrough. We're by the River Tees. The sun is shining, but it is a little bit cool. Now, with me, we've got Sean Mooney from Killline to tell us exactly what we're doing here on this wasteland next to the River Tees. Hello.
I've brought you down here this morning to have a look at some of the bees which we've rehomed this year. There's been a number of changes in public opinion and in the techniques that pest controllers have available to them to deal with bees. It has effectively meant that killing bees is pretty much impossible. Although they're not protected, there is no chemical on the market which is suitable for use against them. It's left people in a position of having bees in walls, chimneys and places around the home that they don't want. There's now one solution, and that's to physically remove them. But then when you remove them and there are more problems which come along with it, where are you going to put them, what are you going to do with them, how are you going to check that they are disease free, how are you going to check that they're not aggressive. We certainly have a slightly hot colony in the centre there which will definitely get you out the way if she doesn't want you there, her and her little workers. So I've come down to show you exactly what's going to happen with pest control moving forward, especially around honeybees and their removal.
Okay, so how do you go about rehoming and fostering a bee?
So the fostering, the process is that you may have bees somewhere in your house that you don't want them. It's usually a chimney or a wall cavity. We'll have builders, scaffolders, etc., who are all capable of working with bees. They will take the chimney down or the wall out to expose the whole colony, and then we will collect up all the comb and all the bees, and they will then be taken away, put in a box and rehomed. You have to go to a quarantine apiary to make sure they're free of disease, because these bees won't never have been checked. And then once they've been rehomed and they get here and we find out that they are suitable for rehoming, they'll then be given to someone who looks after them, anyone who wants them but is going to look after them. That's the caveat to anyone who gets bees off us.
How long do they have to be quarantined for?
So it depends on the colony. We've had ones which have been with us 8-10 weeks and they've been absolutely fine. We've had others that have been with us 18 months. It really does depend on the nature of the bees, how they are bred, what their genetics are. We find that what we class as commercial bees, they seem to deal with being extracted a lot easier than like what a native black bee would. And the native black bees can often be a little bit more aggressive, etc. So we really do just need to make sure that everything's right before they get given to someone who wants them.
Now, we've come to look at these bees. You invited me to come and have a look, but we're about 50 foot away from these boxes and we can't get any close. Well, I can't get any closer.
Yeah, so we can put a suit on and they'll probably be okay. But that being said, there's 3 colonies here. The left and the right colony are okay. The centre colony is quite aggressive, or can be aggressive. The aggression of the colony is controlled by the genetics of the queen, and obviously we can't, or we can change that, but we don't. You can remove that queen and put a new queen in of your own breeding. The issue is that honeybees get badly affected by a parasite called varroa, and these bees that we are taking out of walls are classed as a genetic resource that we need to keep, because a lot of these bees which have been in place for a long time, they've developed what they're called hygienic traits, where they will actually open up cabins, take infected bees out and get them out of the colony. So if we keep them, they are absolutely a brilliant thing to have, because they are going to help with a natural way of combating varroa, and varroa is evolving all the time. There's a lot of chemicals that were used that it's now resistant against, so these bees have to be kept. They don't always produce a lot of honey. They can be very, very poor honey producers, but the genetics that they have within them make them really, really important. And that's why when we give them to people, it's on the understanding that they aren't requeened, that they aren't changed, because then all of your hard work of maintaining that genetic resource would be lost.
where do these bees go then? What places have you worked with before where they've been rehomed?
The bees like a particular place. They like it to be warm and sunny. You've got to remember that most insects are solar powered. They're not big enough to generate their own heat. They like an entrance of around about the size of a 50p piece, and they like it to be nice and warm and dry, somewhere they can get in. So chimneys are a great place, redundant chimneys, they absolutely love that. Wall cavities where people have pulled out a fixing, and there's places like that to get them in. We've had them in roofs in between tiles and plasterboard. We've had them in all sorts of different places, but it's to do with the size of the area that they want. It's usually about 50 litres in size or bigger, and south facing, nice and warm, somewhere where they can get going, and a great food supply. They have to have everything that they need in order to be able to survive.
Okay, so going forward with these colonies that you've got here, what will happen next?
Yeah, so some of them will stop with us because they're not suitable for rehoming. Some of them will get rehomed, and some of them, truthfully, a lot of them stop with us. I keep saying I'm going to rehome them, but especially the ones that you've had 18 months, you kind of get attached to them and then they just stop. You know, they should go, but you know, if I was a cat and dog shelter, I would have 3 million dogs, I think.
Well, you've definitely opened my eyes today. There's a lot that I didn't know about bees, and I've learned a lot. And I reckon one other man here who's learned a lot about bees is Bob Borthwick from Scott Bros. Hello.
Hello.
So how do you tie into all of this then?
Well, we're obviously involved in the green technology industry. As such, we're developing the business around green technologies, and we realise that biodiversity that affects the bees, and we want to preserve the bees because bees have diminished population-wise since 1980, particularly the wild bees. So that's had a dramatic effect on the biodiversity of nature. So we wanted to help Sean by keeping the bees here at Port Clarence, some land we've got at Port Clarence here, and for Sean to do his thing with the bees and to try and get the population back up to a level where it's suitable for biodiversity, really.
Do you know what, before I left for this job today, Gary said to me, get a bee suit on, do it. And I said, no, not happening. But here we are.
So that's a nuke. That's 6 frames made out of poly, and they're wooden. So the nuke is because that was a smaller later colony. The wooden ones have obviously filled them. When they go into winter, and this is part of the problem that we have, in order to give them a good chance of survival, they need enough honey and enough stores to get them through the winter. But they also need to be able to fill the space that they are occupying. If they're only filling half of it, then half of that space is air that they have to warm up. So it causes them to use more resources, and you have less survival rate. So once we've taken the bees out, it's often the hard work comes afterwards, getting them ready to survive that first winter. She might not be queen right. The queen might just give up laying sometimes to do that, and you have to get them through all these processes in order to get them to a point where they will be ready to go in the spring to have another good year at it. And that's effectively what you're doing. But you can see now, they're not aggressive. They're not going to give you a hard time if you leave them alone. If you are to open that middle colony up, it will be a different kettle of fish. She would absolutely get you out of here. But these two aren't too bad. We're not going to fully open them up today because what they want is to stay warm, and if you open them up, what you're going to see is that cold wind's going to get in. It'll chill any brood, and it'll give them a harder time. But we can take the top off and show you through the feeder. So they'll get fed a mixture of liquids. So this gets a syrup added to it. We just make it out of sugar and water, and we'll actually give them the resources that they need in order to sort of build up where it's not available. Or, come to this one at the end, sometimes as we go later into the year, if they just don't have enough, we'll give them a block of bacon fondant, and then we'll use that instead of honey, so they'll actually eat that throughout the winter. Some of them, interestingly, will have their colonies right at the very top of the box, and then other ones will have their colonies right in the bottom of the box, and that just depends on the breed and the genetics of the queen.
I think it's just weird having bees fly around you and not doing your usual like wafting away or trying to move away. Like you feel quite
The worst
protected.
thing you can do is waft your hands around them. The worst thing you can do, because they see it is they're getting a positive response and you are a danger and you are going to, just staying calm really the important thing that you can do. The more you waft and the harder you move, the more CO2 you aspire, and they pick up on that. So yeah, just stay nice and calm around them and you're halfway there.
Wow.
Can you see that one now looking at you? It's all right. It's absolutely fine. It's because you're walking away, so they're thinking you're a predator and they're getting that positive response of you moving, so they're just checking to make sure you are leaving them alone.
There you go. B-Bands on BBC Radio Tees. BBC Radio Tees. Louise Hobson there. And with the full suit, I need to see the picture. So well done to Scott Brothers. Absolutely brilliant stuff. And well done to Killline as well. Just rehoming the bees, moving them around, because they don't know that they're a pest or a nonsense, do they? They just want to do their thing, and it's a wonderful thing to do. Louise Hobson reporting for BBC. Should I do it again, Lee? No.